All right, you may start the meeting now.
All right, thank you so much, Joe. So this is the annual meeting of the Funds Committee. So I'd like to call this meeting to order pursuant to City Ordinance 64457. Ms. Ali, can you please take the roll?
Mayor Jones.
Present.
Comptroller Green.
Here.
Treasurer Lane.
Present. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from September 17, 2021. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and there's a second. Ms. Ali, can you take the roll?
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Comptroller Green.
Aye.
Treasurer Lane.
Aye. Next up is our invest update. So I'll pass it over to PFM and Comer Capital for the update.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Spencer. For those of you listeners on the call, I am the primary contact and relationship manager for this account, and I'm been joined by a very robust team. I have Danny Nelson, who's with us, who is a secondary contact, and Kyle Jones, who is over our portfolio strategies group and handles the investment strategy. And we're also joined by our partners on this account and on this contract with that includes Brandon Comer and Steve Johnson. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you, Treasurer and Mayor and Comptroller Green. I wish it was in person, but you know, we got to just keep going here. So we have a presentation, and I don't know who's the keeper of that on your end, Treasurer Lane.
Should be good to go and good to share now.
Okay.
Hopefully I can share it.
Okay, awesome. So it's a pretty big presentation. I know we don't have a lot of time, so we're just going to focus on a few slides here. And as far as the agenda, I'm just going to go over the relationship, and Danny's going to go over the assets under management and performance, and Kyle's going to go over the earnings and future yield movement. So just very briefly on slide 4, we've been in this relationship for 9 years. Just God passes so quickly, and but these are some of the highlights. I think we've done some good work for the city. We've consistently outperformed our benchmarks and returned the city over $2 million in gross interest earnings, and only paying $286,000 in fees. We've done some training for staff and updated investment policies and set up MOSIP accounts, which contributed to those $2 million in earnings, and also done some bank custodial RFP for the city. So I'm going to turn it over to Danny to go over assets under management and performance.
Thank you, Leslie. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So on this page, we saw a summary of the assets under management for the 2 investment advisors that the city has hired to manage funds. This information is as of June 30, 2022. Also, this does not include any balances that the city may have at local banks. This only includes those accounts and portfolios that are managed by PFM Asset Management and our co-advisor, Comer Capital. Here we show assets broken out into different groups. On the table on the top, you can see the longer term reserve portfolios that PFMAM manages for the city, including an airport portfolio, airport PFC portfolio, and a general pool portfolio. All 3 are managed to a benchmark and total a little over 161 million combined as of June 30th. Next, there are bond proceeds portfolios that are managed by Comer Capital. There are 26 different accounts, which we don't list here, but they do include construction funds, debt service reserve funds, and other funds related to bonds that have been issued by the city over the years. And this total a little over 106 million as of 6/30. And then lastly, we showed a balance in MOSIP. MOSIP stands for the Missouri Securities Investment Program. That's a local government investment pool specific to Missouri public entities, and is very similar to what you would think of as a money market fund. The city does have various different accounts within the MOSIP program, including a general funds account, as well as assets for other city departments, including park and division funds, water funds, fire debt funds, and even some of the ARPA money that the city has received from the federal government has been invested in MOSIP. And the amount of funds that the city has in MOSIP total over 318 million. And in overall, in total aggregate, you can see here the city had over 586 million in assets in its engagement with PFM Asset Management and Comer Capital. And here on page 6, we show a little bit more information that further summarizes the funds that we manage on behalf of the city. One of the things I do want to point out is that interest rates have risen significantly over the past year, and my colleague Kyle Jones will touch on that even more in a little bit. But that being said, on the top table, you can see the average yield at cost, or the average yield of the securities in the various portfolios at the time we purchased them. And you can see the yield at market, which is the yield of those same securities at a point in time as of June 30, 2022. And this is just illustrative of how much yields have gone up over the last year, and really just over the last 9 months. And for the 161 million that PFMAM manages, we do manage those 3 portfolios to a 0 to 3 year benchmark. And you can see the average duration of those portfolios is around 1.3 years as of June 30th. The funds managed by Comer Capital, the 106 million that you see, those are much shorter in nature to meet various spend schedules and construction draw schedules, as well as semi-annual and or annual debt service payments. So by nature, you know, those portfolios have a much shorter duration and a much shorter average maturity. And I did mention rates have gone up, and rising interest rates are actually kind of a double-edged sword in a fixed income world. On the one hand, the good news is that you have higher investment and reinvestment yields that can lead to increased investment income and earnings. But on the other hand, or the bad news is that, you know, the market value of securities in your portfolio does decline and fall. And there is an inverse relationship between the market values and the interest rate movements. And in this case, as interest rates rise, the market value of the investments that you hold are decreasing, which leads to a depreciation of the value of securities and leads to negative periods of total return when you mark to market over a period of time, whether it's quarter over quarter or year over year. And that's what we're showing here on the bottom table in terms of negative performance of the 3 PFMAM managed portfolios, and also the benchmark for the previous quarter, the second quarter of calendar year 2022, and for the past year. Couple of things I do want to mention though. One, these are unrealized losses. So unless we had to sell the securities in your portfolios on June 30th, it's really a paper loss that you're seeing. And the other thing is that, you know, the good news is that you have actually outperformed the benchmark, or been less negative than the benchmark for the last quarter and the last year. And the last thing I'll state before I turn it over to Kyle is that we do take a long-term view when managing your reserve portfolios. And here you can see that over the past 3 years, 5 years, and since inception of 2013, you do see positive performance and consistent outperformance of the benchmark. We do have more information in this report that shows additional data about your portfolios that we won't go over at this meeting, but you can peruse that at your leisure. And just know that the main objectives listed in the city's investment policy is safety, liquidity, and yield in that particular order. And we'll continue to strive to meet those objectives in the management of your funds. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kyle, who will go over the current interest rate environment and how that is affecting your portfolio and our strategy going forward.
Thanks, Danny. And we'll start with the earnings picture. And I remember when we had this call last year, the funds committee meeting, we were talking about how dire the interest rate environment was and how yields had plummeted because earnings had plummeted because yields had fallen so sharply. And I think I remember saying something like, "Unfortunately, I think we're going to be in this environment, for a little while." Well, I was wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong, because the name of the game has been inflation. It's impossible to avoid the story that you've seen in inflation, and more importantly, as it relates to the city's portfolio, the reaction from the Federal Reserve as far as increasing rates. So we'll talk about that momentarily, but you do see that trajectory starting to turn around. You see the yielded cost of the portfolio increasing, that yellow line there between last year and this year. And so while earnings were lower than they were last year, that speaks volumes for what you're expecting to see here over the next year or two. So again, happy to report that the expectation is that after a short bout of relatively low yields, we have seen yields gravitate sharply higher. We're seeing on the part of the yield curve that's relevant to the city's portfolio, yields at their highest level than we've seen since 2007. So the idea that yields are gravitating higher, that really speaks volumes for future income, which comes right back to the city's coffers and the projects and the positive budgetary impact that it'll have on the city's portfolio. So that's the story there. I do want to give just a quick economic viewpoint if we're looking on the next slide, and this is hot off the presses from the Fed's FOMC meeting, Federal Open Market Committee meeting on Wednesday of this week. And during this meeting, they provided projections on their views on things like economic growth, inflation, and their views on appropriate monetary policy as it pertains to the Fed funds rate. So if I just look quickly in the upper left-hand corner, and the way we pulled this chart together was to show in the darker color what the projections from the committee were on for this month, and then to compare that to what we saw what their projections were back in June, so just 3 short months prior. And I find that to be a useful exercise because it provides guidance in the direction of the Fed's collective thinking. So for instance, if we look at real GDP in the upper left-hand corner, that's gross domestic product, our primary gauge of economic growth, you can see a significant decline in 2022 expectations for growth. The idea that the adverse impact that inflation is having on the consumer and on economic growth, it's clearly moderating to some extent. You start to hear those questions on whether or not we're going to see a recession here in the next year or so. When you see that moderating growth here, that fuels that discussion. Same thing in those out years. If you look at unemployment rate in the upper right-hand corner, what those projections are, you see the idea that the unemployment rate might increase to some extent. And this is consistent. The Fed has been raising rates aggressively, and they've told us things like the efforts that they're doing to combat inflation, that it's likely to come at the expense of the unemployment rate, that it's likely to bring pain to American households and businesses. So you would naturally expect to see that related or reflected in higher expectations for the unemployment rate, that we would see that number tick up. You see the core PCE, that personal consumption expenditure inflation in the lower left-hand corner. That's the Federal Reserve's primary gauge of inflation. It excludes the volatile elements of food and energy, which I always argue, for those of us sitting on this call, that's what's impacting us the most. When we're filling up our gas tanks and when we're buying groceries to feed our family, we're seeing and we're feeling the price pressures there. They exclude that from their metrics, albeit you can still see the idea that inflation is inflated here above that 2% target that they like to that they work towards. And they don't think we're going to see that for the next couple of years. And then what does it mean as we're tying back to the portfolio? If you look in the lower right-hand corner, their views on the appropriate monetary policy rate, that Fed funds rate, which is largely, I would argue, that 2-year and under part of the yield curve where the critical mass of the city's dollars are invested. The yield environment there is largely driven by this rate, this Fed funds rate, and expectations for the Fed funds rate over the next couple of years. And as the Fed has risen, we started the year at 0 to 25 basis point range in a zero interest rate environment. And now we're in the low to mid 3% range is where we are now. So in 9 months, or actually 6 months, the Fed has significantly increased its benchmark Fed funds rate and has indicated that a likely 1 to another 1.25% is likely by the end of the year. Having those rates hover in that mid 4% range through much of next year. So that's why we've seen yields gravitate significantly higher. And that's what we're showing on the next slide, which would be my last slide, just to kind of show what this has meant over the past year since the end of this call, or since we had this call last year. On the left-hand side, we're showing the market's expectations for the Fed funds rate. What do we think that's going to look like over the next couple of years? And, we entered this year thinking that, again, the Fed was going to remain relatively tame, that inflation was transitory, and that it would likely naturally dissipate there. So that was a commentary last year that, we're likely to see the earnings, remain relatively subdued here in the near term. And then you can see with the blue line where we are now. Much higher expectations, much higher Fed funds rate. Inflation has been more sustained, more prolonged, and more problematic than many expected coming into the year. And so that's been the impact. So on the right-hand side, you're seeing the current level of yields, highest level that we've seen here over the past year. So since we had this call last year. And Danny alluded to the negative side, the fact that when rates rise, it's inevitable in the fixed income marketplace. Rates rise, market values decline. So when you're looking at your year-over-year mark-to-market calculation for your GASB calculations, you'll see a lower market value number. This is why, as Danny alluded to, largely unrealized losses, and so that's that side. As somebody whose job it is to find investment income in the fixed income marketplace, I would argue that I'm excited about the opportunity set for income generation and what that means for future returns when we're buying securities with a 4% handle on them. I've been in this business 20 years at this point. I can't remember an environment where the yield curve, particularly the front end, where public fund investors like the city, where the critical mass of their dollars are, to have this type of opportunity set, to look at excess liquidity and think about opportunities to get those dollars invested along the curve and to increase the income potential back to the city's coffers. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions from the group, or if I know Brandon and Steve are on from CCG, if there's any additional commentary that you'd like to add, more than happy to, but want to make sure we open it up for questions from the group.
Excellent. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, everyone who helped to prepare this report. In terms of opening up for questions, I'll start in the order of our roles. So Mayor Jones, any questions or comments from you?
No questions. I just want to also send my appreciation to PFM for being such a great partner over the last 9 years, as well as Comer Capital. Looks like we're still headed in the right direction.
The semi leave with as I close this half of it is what I'd like to look at moving forward. So again, going through, I populated my questions and what would I like to see. So I do want to again be able to, using a data-driven approach, be able to direct folks in the city where their efforts are best served. So one of the things that I do want to look at in the future is just that growth rate of loan volume and originations, especially in a disaggregated way by bank. So that is going to be an asset I have of the planning division, so that we can see which banks are doing what for which groups of people. And how can we just make it more strategic so they're not going to 2, 3, 4 banks, but they know exactly where to go, and that banks can have a more coordinated effort in serving folks in the city. And then also with that low and moderate income population, just continuing to look at that origination to application rate, and then also by bank to see which of those banks again are specializing in that, and then how can we use those best practices with our other depositories and lending institutions. So that's the HMDA report. I'm going to move into the what I call now the B scorecard, but it's Banking for Economic Equity scorecard. So this is something that is brand new. So everyone is seeing this well, most people are seeing this for the first time, unless you've been working on it with me. But I want to explain the purpose. I'm going to go a little bit into how it works and what it is. So definitely banking depositories and institutions, listen up. But the goal is to, again, comprehensively and coordinatively commit to economic justice within the city of St. Louis and the initiatives that the city puts out. I also wanted to have a tool. So the HMDA report is great. It allows us to look at our lending activity. It allows us to disaggregate that data, but there are some other areas which have been sort of intangibles, but I want a way to measure that, because we have to measure, or we measure what we care about. And if we care about this, we want to have a vetted tool to be able to measure those efforts. And again, using that disaggregated data so that we're not just using blanket or broad data to say we're doing a good job, we're moving in a direction, but making sure that the segments that need to move in the direction that they need to are getting and going there. Want to let you know where we are with it. So right now, this is the presentation stage. So we are unveiling this, or I am unveiling this to you. The goal is to have a full rollout of this by next year. We're going to spend the next quarter sending this around to different community partners and organizations, as well as the banks, to get feedback, both on the scoring rubric, the categories, the weights, and all of those things. And we really want this to be a community involved approach to how we create the scorecard for our banking institutions. And I want to highlight that is not a punishment, it is a commitment. So if the categories that I talk about make you nervous, I encourage you to sit with that discomfort and figure out why that is, but also commit to what we're doing here. So this might be hard to see depending on what screen you are, but I'm not going to read all the boxes, but I'm letting you know that this is the rubric. And I will talk about the categories, what they mean, and what it means to score in those categories. So top to bottom, leadership diversity. So this is looking at executive staff as well as board diversity. There are numbers, and this will be sent out to all of our city depositories, but there are numbers in here that let you know what that means, where we're trying to go, and what it means to score in each of these categories. So it's not vague at all, but very specific. We're also going to have a category for C-suite diversity, or your client-facing staff. So your middle managers, folks that work with your public, that are face-to-face with those who are looking for a loan or looking to bank with you. We're also looking at what the diversity of your staff look like in that area. Equitable lending. So this is building off of and would be the main category of the HMDA report. But what does equitable lending look like? Where are you lending? What does the census tract data show for your banking institutions, as well as what's the growth that you're making in those communities? Customized products and programs. So we have to understand that we did not get into this economic situation with low and moderate income populations by accident. So in addition to the doing that needs to happen, there's a lot of undoing that needs to happen as well. And that comes from customized programs. For example, I know Bank of America is doing a no interest loan program for Black and Brown entrepreneurs. That's a specialized program. And other banks, and that's just the one that comes to mind. Other banks and institutions are also doing other things, but I think it's more the understanding and knowledge that in order to move forward, we have to look back and undo in a strategic way what has been done. So there will be a category to acknowledge that. And it's more of a way to also show other banks what they can be doing as well. And then the last one is a community-focused empowerment. So what strategic investments are you making in community organizations, community programs within the St. Louis region to really show that commitment and show that you understand that part of your bottom line is also the growth of the communities that you serve. This is just an example, and again, I won't go into it because of time, but of some of the language that goes into it. So I did talk about those customized products. So the institution, for example, in the A category would be the institution has evidence of success in implementing tailored products and employed economic programs that have results in increasing financial mobility in historically under-resourced communities. So again, that would be an A in this rubric. And then for, let's say, leadership diversity and C-suite diversity, there is also language that shows what it doesn't look like and what it needs to score poorly in that area. So all of our institutions will have access to this rubric. Again, the next phase is going to be to roll it out to community partners, stakeholders, as well as the banks to get feedback on how this can be improved, what questions you all have, and we'll answer all those questions to make sure this tool is the best tool possible to serve the city of St. Louis and its residents. This is an example of what the scorecard would look like once the rating is complete. So this is a fictional bank, Gotham National Bank, and what that scorecard will include, it'll show all the categories. It'll show you the rating or grade that you got in that category. And then there'll be a description of the findings, which will come from a committee, a community-based stakeholder committee that will score based on the information presented, and the data presented will score the banks. But the description of the findings will be a snapshot, but we'll also have a comprehensive file to back it up. But that scorecard itself will just show a snapshot of what that institution is doing well, what they're not doing well, what are the areas for growth, and what are some recommendations moving forward. But it'll show their actual score, the point total, prior year rating. Obviously, in the first year, there won't be a prior year rating, their leading category, and then also the trailing category. And this is something that we're going to keep track of so that we can measure it and hold our partners and institutions accountable. I talked about the next steps already, so I won't reiterate, but again, there's going to be a vetting process. We're going to pass it around to our community stakeholders. The other thing that we're going to issue is there could be some categories that, again, do make some of our banking institutions nervous there, but we're also going to pass around resources. So organizations, individuals that you can work with to improve those areas, or if you started in those areas of diversity or equitable lending or customized programs and they've halted, we will provide the names of organizations and individuals that can actually help you to develop and grow in those areas, because we always want to make sure if we make an ask that we support it with resources as well. So that is a scorecard. Again, that information will be passed around. I'm very excited about where we go with this. Again, the next quarter will be these next steps. After that, we're going to start to compile that data and create the form for the data to come in. And then we will have a third quarter of next year, or within 3 quarters, we want to make sure that we have some preliminary scorecards to share with everyone on this committee, as well as our banking institutions. So moving on from that, I'm almost done. I just want to give out some banking institution recognition. So these are all the lists of the banks that have participated in our Gateway to Benefits Fair. So I just want to extend a thank you to all of these partners. I believe most, if not all of these, are all of our applicants and city depositories. Our Gateway to Benefits Fair is a fair that is held in City Hall, and we've had 2 in the last year. And that fair goes to make sure that employees of the city and residents who might be passing through City Hall that day have access to these banks, are able to look at different products that they might need, answer questions about if they want to pursue a home loan or get a car loan or refinance. So I'm very appreciative of all these banks showing up and showing out and bringing energy, bringing bikes to give away. Thank you, Regions, and engaging with our city employees and our city residents. That does go a long way, and I'm very appreciative of that. I also want to specially recognize these 3 institutions. So Wells Fargo is not one of our depositories, but they're on this list. We have a college kid savings program, if you didn't know, with the city of St. Louis that was started by our honorable Mayor Tashara Jones when she was treasurer. And I want to recognize these 3 banks who have gone above and beyond in their commitment to help funding the need when it comes to the College Kid Savings Program. So these are organizations that have come through in the 11th hour to make sure that when we hit our fundraising goals, but aside from that, Altru holds the deposits for our institutions and makes sure that they provide financial education to the young people as well. And when we think about, just investment in community, that this is what we're talking about, and this is just an example of that. So I just wanted to make sure that we gave them that special recognition as well. Christina, I see your hand.
Yes, Treasurer Lane. One, I apologize. We left off Regions Bank recently, who did fund one of our college kids activity programs in the last 60 days, and that is my error for not putting them on this. But Regions Bank did come through with one of our college kid programs for funding.
Okay, I'll take that. My apologies. But thank you, Christina. Thank you for making sure that they got recognized as well, and thank you, Regions. I do want to step out and highlight 2 new programs, and there's a third one that we'll be unveiling soon that I'm excited to talk about, and I'll be brief, but I want to recognize BMO Harris and Busey for their commitment to post-secondary education and filling in that gap. I'm proud to announce that BMO Harris has agreed to partner with us and provide scholarships both for Hispanic Heritage Month and Black History Month. And those scholarships will be given out to students in the city of St. Louis that come from low to moderate income census tracts to help them go on and pursue their post-secondary efforts. Additionally, I want to thank and highlight Busey Bank, who has agreed to commit $20,000 in scholarship funding to students in the city of St. Louis as well. 15 of those scholarships will go to high school students that are getting ready to go to college, and 5 of those scholarships will actually go to students at our very own historically Black college, Harris Stowe, in the city of St. Louis, specifically for juniors and seniors who are looking to finish their education. One of the asks that I made of Busey is letting them know that we have a lot of students in the city who we start school, and usually freshman year, there are a lot of scholarships available, but students often fall upon hard times. And our goal is not just to get students to college if they want to go, but we want to make sure that they persist and finish. And this opportunity is going to make sure that our students finish and know that banking institutions in the city and the city of St. Louis cares about its young people. So I'm very happy about that. The last thing that I will say, and we had this, we had a follow-up meeting this morning, so this is a little bit of a teaser, but again, I'm sharing this not to brag, but I'm sharing this to say where we want to go and where we know we can go and what's possible. We have a financial advising firm, and once we get everything dry, or all the ink dry, we will be excited to announce that. But we have a firm that has promised to commit 6 figures to an investment program for students in the city of St. Louis. That will be a cohort model. So students will start in 9th grade and go all the way to 12th with this program. And the 6-figure commitment will be dollars that they will actually be in charge of investing. So they will learn about how to invest, learn about the financial markets, and also learn about careers in finance so that they can be the ones leading these meetings and participating in these meetings and presenting to us as well, and leading a lot of your banking institutions one day. So that is our hope, and we want to start early and we want to build those pipelines. So I'm excited to announce that once the ink is dry. But again, I say this to say we can go a lot of places with our businesses and our institutions in the city to make sure that the future is bright. And that's very important to me. All right, so I will open it up to any questions from the mayor and the comptroller, and then we will move on to our next item.
Well, this is great. I am just over the moon excited that you were able to take a lot of the questions that we started to ask on the annual funds committee meetings of banking institutions and actually turn them into a scorecard. So I can't wait to see what the scorecard looks like. And for the banks who are on the call who are wondering, oh my God, how am I going to meet some of these requirements? Well, I would like to put in a plug to invite the banking institutions to a meeting that we will set up to talk about our economic justice action plan and how you can be partners with us in this work to fill in some of the gaps where we see on those maps where they are white with no loans or light green with 1 to 9 loans, to make them look dark green like they do in other parts of the city. So stay tuned for an invitation from my assistant to talk about how your institutions can help the city spend ARPA funds to build new affordable and market rate housing, to build more businesses and also workforce development opportunities. We are going full throttle and we are bullish on the future of our city, and we want to invite you to be partners in that. So that way, when the scorecard comes up next year, you won't have a problem scoring A's and B's on your on the scorecard. So I just want to again, applaud you, Treasurer Lane, for taking some of the things that I built as treasurer and taking them to the next level. I'm just super excited to have you as a partner in city government. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Jones. Comptroller Green.
Yes, I certainly do have some comments. First of all, thank you for the report. And thank you for all of the efforts that have been made to bring banks along the way to participate in supporting our community. I was excited to hear about the scholarships, and I hope to see that partnership grow. But I also would like to ditto all of the comments said by our mayor, our honorable mayor, because I'm as excited as she is in terms of what we can do going forward. I want to add that Prop NS, which is in full effect to help rehab homes in the city, also can serve as a partnership with our banking community and the citizens who wish to go the route of rehabbing rather than to building a new home. So I'm excited for what we have and where we're going. I'm also glad the mayor has emphasized the ARPA funds. That's something that we have available, but we also have the Prop NS funds. So we are standing ready, as the mayor has alluded to be a great partner with our banking community to help service our citizens in this city. So this has been a wonderful update that we've been given with this funds committee meeting. And I say thank you to Mr. Treasurer and all of those who are professionals who serve you. And I say keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. And I'd be remiss not mentioning my gratitude for both you, Comptroller Green, and Mayor Jones, because when I go to make these asks to these banks, it's not a foreign concept to them. So I thank you all for laying that groundwork to know, yep, these are normal conversations. These are, this is what we want to do. And then also the standard that you all hold for the city and anyone who does business with the city, so that they're ready to step in and step up. All right, so with that, we will move on to the approval of our city depositories for fiscal year 23. So I will entertain a motion to approve our list.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Ali, can you take the roll?
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Comptroller Green,
Aye.
and Treasurer Lane.
Aye. New business, Mayor Jones, you mentioned that you have someone to speak.
Yeah, so I think I talked about it earlier. Just wanted to alert the financial institutions for an invitation from my office to review our economic justice action plan. And also we'll talk about ways for you to get involved, because we can't do this work alone, and government, it shouldn't all be on the shoulders of government to reverse decades of policies and disinvestment in marginalized communities. So we look forward to working with you as we deploy ARPA money, as well as the comptroller intimated, Prop NS dollars in the community in the ways that they are supposed to be spent. So we look forward to engaging with you in that work.
Thank you, Mary Jones. All right. Well, that looks like it's all. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Ms. Ali.
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Comptroller Green,
Aye.
Treasurer Lane.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Have a great weekend.
Take care. Everyone have a great weekend. Bye.